Welcome to the only wrestling podcast that covers the WWE developmental system from its inception to modern day. From OVW to MCW, the HWA, Deep South, FCW, and much more. Hosted by Brian Asbury and Mortimer Blankenship. Now let's dive into what could have been, what should have been. Welcome to Developmentally Speaking.
Hey, before we get in this episode, can you do us a favor? Will you go ahead and subscribe to the channel?
Will you ring that notification bell?
And if you would, give this video a like. Well, enough of that mumbo jumbo. Let's get to the episode.
Let's talk developmentally speaking, glow up, and connecting through wrestling. Start off with a question you've probably been asked a million times. What made you want to get into professional wrestling?
I was always into acting. I wanted to be an entertainer since I can remember. I remember going to the movies with my mom and then asking her, like, how do I do that? How do I play those characters? And at the time, she just said, you can't, because you have to know the right people and you have to live in a certain place. And you have to live in Hollywood. And so I just never thought it was going to happen. And but while I was in grade school and high school, I would do plays and stuff like that, and I remember I was always drawn to, my friends and I would get somebody's video camera, one of those big old school VHS tape that, and we'd make little movies and just, I was always drawn to the entertainment aspect of things. And I didn't discover wrestling until about 96, 97, when Austin was having his big run. And I realized then that, because I had always kind of made fun of it. I was the guy that poked fun at my friends for watching. And I realized that I had been missing out on this awesome art form. And then I also realized that it was a good blend of all the stuff that I liked, sports, athleticism, and bodybuilding, and acting all rolled into one.
So, when did you decide that that this is what you were going to do?
So, for a while, wrestling was so hot that's like I would go to work and that's all we would talk about, right? Like all the guys. I worked at a nuclear power plant. I was a security guard, and oftentimes I worked like 12-hour shifts, and you just go sit in a box for an hour, and then somebody would come and relieve you, and you'd walk over to another box, sit there. But we had phones, and we would just sit on the phone with each other all night long and talk wrestling. Did you see what Austin did this week? Did you see what The Rock did? He's getting really, he was starting to pick up steam too. He was getting to be really funny, saying some cool stuff. And one night I was at a party, and I'll never forget it. Like, one of my friends said, hey, I know somebody who knows somebody who's going to a wrestling school. And I had never even thought, how do these people do this stuff? Like, where do you learn how to do this? And I left the party that night. I went home. I got online. There was no Google at the time, whatever it was, like AOL.com, the old dial-up modem thing.
Ask Jeeves.
And yeah. I think that was search engine then. And I looked up wrestling schools, and for whatever reason, I didn't think that there won't be a wrestling school in Green Bay or anywhere near here. I figured I was going to have to go to like a major city, so I thought Chicago, New York, or LA or something like that. And I was about 3 hours away from Chicago, so I just started looking up wrestling schools in Chicago. And I figured this was, long before Mick Foley's book ever came out. I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about wrestling, really, other than what I had just watched for a few months. And I remember thinking, I work every other weekend. I can drive down there on the weekends that I have off, and I'll live in my car if I have to. I'll just sleep in my car and I'll go to this wrestling school. And then I called and left a message for the NAWF, which was located around the Chicago area. And the next day I got a phone call from Mike Krause, who ended up training me. And he said, hey, I got your number from Rockin' Randy, who was the owner of that NAWF. He said, I'm starting a school in Green Bay. So would you like to come in? We'd like to give you a tryout. And then, so I think I paid, I can't remember if it was $250 for my tryout.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I stuck around, then that would get taken off of my tuition. And I think tuition at the time was $1,200. And I walked into that building, and it was this like old, J.C. Penney or Prangway.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an old mall like that, and it had been gutted, and he had rented this back room, so it was dingy and dark, and stuff everywhere. And it was this little tiny 16 by 16 foot ring. It was a low rider, so it was only sat up off the ground like maybe a foot and a half, 2 feet. And it had rips and tears and blood stains all over the canvas, and it had these kind of floppy ropes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking that's cool, like nowadays if I would see that, I would be like, what the Mickey Mouse operation are we running here? But I was just like, that's cool. And then I remember Merck, the guy who trained me, he said, that's Honky Tonk Man's blood right there. And he started like pointing out. And I got in the ring, and honestly, the moment that I got into that ring, I knew that I was home. I knew that this is what I wanted to do. So my tryout went well, and they opted to train me, and I started training. It was, I believe, once a week on Sundays. I would go up there and train for a couple hours.
How long did you train?
I trained for 9 months, had my first match, and then I still kept going to camp. There were some new guys coming around at the time, and yeah, and from there I just tried to get booked as much as I could. And like I said, I had a job that required me to work every other weekend, so I was turning down tons of booking opportunities. So I finally, I quit that job. I got a job as a personal trainer. I moved to the Twin Cities, which was a hotbed for wrestling at the time. There was probably, kind of like it is today, there's like 10 different promotions that run out of here. So
That's what I was going to ask next. Some people, when I interview them, they didn't really leave like the area they were in. So, because your job at the time, did you just stay in the Green Bay area, and then once you relocated, then did you start like venturing out in bookings, or did you stay in a general vicinity?
Oh, I got you. We ventured out as much as we could, but we were, we were pretty much stuck in the Midwest. But it was Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, some Iowa, some North Dakota, a little Canada every once in a while. I remember Dr. Tom Pritchard eventually took over for, when I first started sending tapes to WWE, Kevin Kelly was in charge of bringing in new talent and the extras. And then at some point, Dr. Tom Pritchard took over. And I remember me and Davari and ODB, we saw that Dr. Tom was doing a seminar out in Boston. And ODB's dad worked for NWA, the airline, and was able to get us some like standby tickets. So we flew out there and we did the Dr. Tom, because we were like, Davari and I, and ODB for that matter, we just, what do we need to do to get into WWE? What are they looking for? What do we have to do? So that was we set out to crack that code. Dr. Tom happened to be like, we knew that if we made an impression on him, that he would at least, there's at least a toenail in the door. And it went well, and it ended up being kind of a piece of the puzzle. After it was 6 years, we humped it and made a ton of mistakes and just had a ton of fun learning how to crack that code, and we finally did.
Oh, so you started doing dark matches early on, I believe. Yeah.
So I believe I was only like 9, 10, maybe 11 months in the business when I sent my first tape to WWE. And there were some people that were like, I wouldn't do it if I were you. They're going to think you're a goof. Like, you're not ready. You don't want them to see you like that. And I thought it was good.
Hmm.
You know, like, looking back on that stuff now, I cringe watching it. Um, but I just remember thinking, if I send them a tape and they see it and they critique me, and then I fix it, whatever it was they critiqued, and send them another tape, they should see that, right? And
Hmm.
so that was my mentality. So I sent a tape to the WWE office like 10 or 11 months in, and I really didn't think I was going to hear anything back. Like, it
Hmm.
was a shot in the dark. And about a week to a week and a half later, Kevin Kelly called me and said, "Hey, I got your tape. I liked it. I'd like to bring you in for an extra." I think it was Milwaukee, and it was Milwaukee and Chicago for Raw and SmackDown. And didn't do anything that time, but I just, hung out. I think I might have gotten to get in the ring for a little bit. They would sometimes let extras get in there and kind of roll around. Um, ate the catering, which was awesome. And it's crazy. You go from just doing indie shows to I'm in line behind Stone Cold Steve Austin
Hmm.
getting catering and the Rock is, you know, motioning to somebody across the room that, hey, should we go lift? Should we go to the gym? Just stuff like that, man. It was just crazy and trying to figure out. Okay, I'm still a fan. I think we're all wrestling fans.
Hmm.
Wrestlers are the biggest fans because like we decided to do it. We like it
Hmm.
so much that we actually want to do it. But it's trying to maintain that professionalism. You can't be a fan backstage. You have to be professional.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and then I just started. Anytime WWE would be anywhere near the area, I always watched their calendar. And anytime I saw that they were in the area within driving distance, and I mean like 15, 15 hours was driving distance to me, I would call whoever it was. It was Kevin Kelly, then it was Dr. Tom, and then it ended up being Tommy Dreamer. And I would just say, "Can I be an extra on this?" And oftentimes I'd get told no,
Hmm.
but every once in a while he'd say yes. And over the years, I probably did. I had to have had like 8 or 9 matches that were televised, like on Sunday Night Heat or Jacked or Metal um, and then I had like probably 4 or 5 dark matches that I don't even know if those exist anymore.
I'm sure they're out there somewhere. So you doing all this, is that what led to your developmental deal, or how did you get on their radar for that? Like they were
Well,
ready to.
so like I said, I would just call every few months. I kept sending tapes. I was really consistent with that. I always called for extra work. And every once in a while, I would call and just say, "Hey, I'm just checking in. Um, anything? Are you guys hiring? What do I need to do?" I would always ask, like, what do I need to do? And they would always say, "Just keep doing what you're doing." Dr. Tom at one point said, "Hey, if we knew, we would bottle it and sell it,
Hmm.
but we don't know what we're looking for. But I know when I see it. When I see something that I'll know, like, okay, that guy needs to be here." And we were really persistent. And then Davari got hired because Dr. Tom called him up one day and he's like, "Hey, do you speak Arabic or something?" And Sean is from his family's from Iran,
Hmm.
so he speaks Farsi. And so they were looking to do the Muhammad Hassan character, and then they hired Davari specifically to go down to OVW and work with Mark. Um, Mark being the guy who played Muhammad Hassan,
Hmm.
and then he got called up on the road, and then Dreamer took over for the talent relations position, and Davari had become really good friends with Tommy, or at least tight enough, and he would always sort of like put in. He just kept working on Tommy. Hey, like, remember Ken? Don't forget about Ken. And finally, one day I remember it was like Davari messaged me and he said, "Hey, be by your phone. Don't kayfabe any phone calls because they're probably gonna hire a bunch of people this weekend." And then I think it was Friday, he called me and said they just hired 8 people from OVW that were non-contracted guys. And so any moment now. And now, before this, both Arn Anderson and Paul Heyman had both pulled me aside at tapings and said, the next time there's a hiring, we're gonna try to get you. Like, I got along really well with Arn. He would work with me when I was there. I tried to be a sponge as much as I could. Heyman took a liking to me, and then so I waited all weekend. No call. Monday, no call. Tuesday, no call. And I would always wait until, because Monday was Raw and Tuesday was SmackDown. So if Tommy wouldn't get back to the office until Wednesday, so I would always call on Wednesday about noon. And I called on my break from work, and I said, hey, Tommy, this is Ken Anderson from Green Bay. And he would normally say, hello, Ken Anderson from Green Bay. How may I help you? That monotone voice that I always thought, like, this guy, he hates me, right? Can I swear on here?
Huh? Yeah, you can swear.
Okay. I was like, he fucking hates me, right? But it just turns out that's the way Tommy is.
Mhm.
And but he would always say, if he was busy, he would say, I'm going to have to call you back. And then he would never call me back, which is fine. That's just the way it is.
Mhm.
But he said, hey, hang on a second. And then I heard him shuffling some papers around. I was like, he's never told me to hang on.
Mhm.
And then he goes, I've been trying to get a hold of you for the last few days, but your phone is disconnected. And I was like, no, it's not. He's like, is your number blah, 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 blah? I said, no. He goes, oh, I've been calling the wrong number. Well, I was calling to tell you that I got you a job. And I was just like, I remember he said, we talked about some of the specifics. He said, I don't know if I'm going to send you to OVW or to Deep South, because Deep South was just opening up down in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure which one, but just sit tight, wait by your phone kind of thing. And then he goes, do you have anything you'd like to say to me? And I said, man, I just want to let you know that, I'm going to bust my ass, and I'm gonna prove you right, and I'm gonna prove all those guys right. He's like, okay, you don't have to go getting all lame on me. And it took the wind out of my sails. But then Davari messaged me, where I talked to him, and he said, you want to go to OVW because OVW is established.
Mhm.
He goes, there's no telling what's going to happen with Deep South. It might be there for, a few months. It might not even get up and running. You never know. So I just went and, no, actually, Davari put in a word too. And Tommy told me, okay, you can go to OVW. I'm going to send you there. And so the next week I went down and I looked at apartments. And no, I didn't even drive down there. I just called a place. Didn't look at it or anything. Just called a place, saw that they had apartments. Um, Sent in my security deposit. Got the place, loaded up my truck within the next couple of days, and a U-Haul,
Mhm.
and moved down there. And I got there on a Tuesday. I unloaded everything, took the U-Haul back, and then I called Tommy, and I was like, "Hey, do you mind if would it be okay for me to go by and just introduce myself?" And he was like, "Are you there looking at apartments?" And I was like, "No, I'm here." He was like, "You live there?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, well, you can start tomorrow then." And it was a Wednesday, which was a TV taping, and he said, "Just go knock on the back door. Somebody will let you in. Just introduce yourself, and away you go." And so I did that. Super excited. Knocked on that back door at the Davis Arena, and Bobby Lashley opened the door. And I remember looking at him and going, "Oh fuck, that's my competition. Like, I'm never gonna make it here." But yeah, that was it. Watched the TV tapings that night, and then the next day Cornette would always go over. He would play the tape from the night before. He'd wheel out this big TV, and then we would do like match review, and he would dissect the whole show, kind of talk about what was good, what was bad, what could have been better.
Well, you get to OVW. How was your first experiences there?
I loved it. Right away, everybody was so opening and so welcoming. I knew that immediately you go from working independent shows where a couple people in the locker room are really good. Sometimes nobody in the locker room is good,
Hmm.
to everybody there was good. Everybody there had a look. Everybody had a body,
Hmm.
and it was just knew it was going to be hard work. And it's also, I mean, it's nerve-wracking to put yourself out there in front of your peers. So I think wrestling in front of 20 people, 20 of your peers, and cutting promos in front of these people is worse than
Hmm.
cutting a promo in front of 10,000 people.
I couldn't agree more. I'm always more comfortable in large crowds. If there's like a limited number, I'm just like, oh no, I'm
I
gonna mess
hate.
this up.
I talk to my students sometimes. Like whenever we start a new class, we start a new cycle every 3 months, and I'm
Hmm.
always, oh, I'm gonna be a babbling idiot tonight, and you know, but it's always like you said, those small crowds that's more nerve-wracking.
Was there any plans for you initially down there? Or were they tossing ideas around? Did you have an idea?
Nothing at all. I was just kind of just trying to do the best I could, survive. Um, you know, Ears open, mouth shut for the most part, having fun. I mean, that was part of the whole deal
Hmm.
was going out to, was it Fourth Street?
Hmm.
We would practice hard and we would play hard. So it was getting to know everybody that way. Um, but Cornette was booking the TV at the time, and I've said this before, and I don't mean it in a negative way at all. Just like he didn't know what to do with me. Like he didn't really see anything in me. And that's not me knocking him. It's just
Hmm.
like I was just a guy with a decent look and a decent worker. Um, what do we do with that? So it was just trying to figure out. And then I remember I was just kind of like I felt as though every week when I did get a match, it would just be kind of like he had a hat full of babyface names and a hat full of heel names, and he would just like take one name out, and there you go. Go out there, and you got 6 minutes, and that's what you were given. And then one day, Steve Kern came down. Every once in a while, they would have the producers, the road agents. They would come down and just give their 2 cents for a day or two. And he was like, "You need to do something different." He's like, "You just look like a guy. You got a good build and everything, but like you're just a guy." And he goes, "I always tell people that as a wrestler, you want to be the guy that when you walk into a restaurant and sit down, people's heads turn.
Hmm.
He said, when they look at you, they go, 'I don't know who that is, but he's somebody,' kind of thing." And I went home that night and I bleached my hair blonde and I bleached my goatee. And I had done that for years on the indies, but for whatever reason, I had just gone back to my natural hair color. I came the next day and Cornette was pissed. It's like, "What the fuck did you do?" So he just said, "Well, you want to be a fucking blonde? Then I'm gonna stick you with." And he stuck me with the Blonde Bombers, which was Tank Tolan, Chad Wicks, Melissa Coates, I think, and then me.
Hmm.
And then he gave me an opportunity. He gave me an opportunity to cut a promo, and I just like, I'm gonna swing for the fences on this one, and I went crazy. And I came back to the curtain. And I remember like, where the fuck is that guy been? You know. And then I think I maybe did 1 or 2 weeks of doing that, and then I say this half joking, but one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my career was Jim Cornette slapping Santino Marella around in the back because he got released, and the next day Paul Heyman came in, and Paul pulled me aside right away, and he said, "I'm going to do so much stuff with you." He goes, "I've been a fan of yours since we met, and I'm going to do so much stuff with you on TV that they're going to have to notice you, and you'll be out of here in no time." And I try not to get excited about things until they're actually occurring.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to hear stuff like that, right? But then, like that night, OVW TV's an hour long show,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a promo to start the show off. I had another backstage segment with Maria, and then I had like a 20-minute match with Brent Albright. And then he just started every week. He was doing so much stuff with me, and then the 1 week he said Dean Visk was the announcer at the time, and he told me like go cut him down and tear him a new asshole, tell him he's the shits, and then you do your own introduction, you know. And I was a basketball announcer when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say the last name twice for the members of our team. And I remember being in the ring, and I said my name, and then I just threw the second Anderson in there. And then when I came back to the curtain, everybody was like, "Dude, keep doing that," you know. And then I believe it was 3 or 4 weeks later, I got a call from Dreamer. And he said, "Hey, they want you to come to TV this week. They want to see your gimmick." So I went, got put in a dark match with Funaki, went over it. Also in the day, you know, Paul put it in a word for me, and Steve Lombardi came up and he said, "Hey, I want you to come back and cut a couple promos." And I went back, and I remember standing there, and I'm trying to think of what to say. And he's like offering advice. He's going, "Well, maybe you do this, 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 and this." And I would almost have it in my head. And then he would go, or this. And he would change it up, right? And then that kept happening. And I was getting more and more stressed out. And I was just, fuck it. I've done this a bunch of times before. I've got some stuff in the tank. And I had a tagline, you know, a couple things that I always hit. And I hit him. And I remember Steve said, "That was really good." And he goes, "I'm going to go tell Vince." And so he walked up and he said something to Vince. I half think that was the straw that broke the camel's back there,
Mm-hmm.
because so again, it's me versus Funaki, but dark match. I got a little bit of offense, but he was going over, right? He was going to win the match, and I'm doing push-ups in the gorilla position, and Dave Lagana comes walking around the corner, and he's like, "There's been a change." And immediately in my head, I was like, "Ah, fuck,
Mm-hmm.
they cut me." All right. And he goes, "We have to, first of all, this is going to be a televised match. It's going to be on Velocity. 2, we have to come up with a finisher for you because you're going over. And 3, welcome aboard." And so without even, and I remember, I can't remember if it was before that or right after that Vince came up to gorilla position
Mm-hmm.
to go sit down. And the thing about that was, I learned this later, that he never goes and sits and watches the dark matches and stuff. He sits down like right before that pyro's going off, before the open of the show. And I went out, and I remember being in the ring with Funaki, and I was nervous, but like a good nervous. It was, I belong here. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like I had done all the like 6 years of humping it, you know, and learning and trying to get better, and I belong here right now. And so I just kind of, you know, I had that confidence. And then when I came back through the curtain, I got the thumbs up from Vince, which is always a good sign. And then Arn Anderson came up to me, "You just got yourself a job, kid." So that was cool, man.
Oh yeah, ultimate compliment right there. So, how would you describe your WWE run as a whole?
As a whole, we kind of have to take it in chunks,
Mm-hmm.
right? The first 2 years was nuts. It was just like I go from God, I want to be on the road. I want to be on the road. I want to be on to I'm on the road five days a week. Sometimes, like if you do, I remember we did an overseas tour once, and I believe we did 19 shows in 21 days in a different city and a different country every night. Um, I'm doing interviews and making appearances and autograph signings and getting invited to like parties out in Hollywood and stuff like that. It was just amazing. It was just instant overnight success, right? That's what although I knew that it wasn't. I just loved it, and everybody would ask me, "Is it everything that you thought it was going to be?" I was like, "Yes, and more." Like it was awesome. And then I got injured, which sucked. I was I sat at home for 10 months. I lost a lot of weight too, so I got a staph infection. So I had the surgery on my lat, and like 5 days after the surgery, I just started shivering, and then I would get really hot, and then I went to the hospital a few times, and they took my temperature and looked at me and sent me on my way. My ex-wife had thought like her grandpa had died from a staph infection or something like that, so she was like, please take blood samples on that first day, and they did, and like 2 days later they came in, and they were just about to send me home again and say like, we don't know, there's nothing wrong with you, and it came in that like I had these, it was like gram-negative rods or something like that. I don't know what that. They said it was the same stuff that basically was in the Black Plague. So,
Damn.
yep. So it was like a staph infection, and I was in the hospital for 5 or 6 days. I lost like 30 or 40 pounds within 2 weeks. It was nuts. So
Jeez.
then I rehabbed it, got back, and then sort of because before my injury, they were like, you know, I was wrestling, was moving up, and then it just kind of brought me to a screeching halt. And then I was finally able to like start to get some momentum, and then I would get injured again, and they then come to a screeching halt again. And I got in trouble a couple times. I got in trouble with the Signature Pharmacies thing, and that was an interesting one. Um, Stephanie came up to me one day and she's like, "We've got this great idea. Vince has an idea that he wants you to do. He loves it. He thinks you'll love it too." So he pitched it to me. He said, "I'm gonna find out that I have an illegitimate son out there, and we're gonna do this big investigation, and it's gonna be revealed you're my son, and then who knows where we go from there." So we started going through that process and doing little teases and stuff. I remember doing a backstage segment with Vince where we bumped into each other, and I said something to him, and then I turned around and I walked away, and as I walked away, I did the Vince walk, just little teases and stuff, and then they finally narrowed it down to it's a male, and he has blonde hair. So it was me, Hornswoggle, or Sandman, and they were going to reveal the next week in Green Bay who the son was, and I'll never forget. I got home from TV. So SmackDown was on Tuesday. Wednesday, I landed in Minneapolis. Got home, walked in my front door, and I got a call from the office. They said, "Hey, Vince needs to see you in his office in Stamford, like this afternoon. So go to the airport. We'll book you a flight. We'll give you all the information." So I did that. Flew to Stamford. They picked me up in a car, took me to Titan Towers, and I go up and I ride the elevator up, and I look and there's 8 other people sitting in the lobby. 8 or 9 people. I can't remember. I think it was 9 of us. And nobody knew what it was. Because like I gotta be honest, when they told me Vince needed to see me in his office, I was like, here we fucking go. This is and I get there and it was sort of the room and the atmosphere in the air was like, I don't think this is good. And then Edge was the first one to go in. They brought us in separately, and he came out like 5 minutes later, and he kind of had his head down, and he just said like, "I can't tell you guys, it's not good though." And then he and so
Oh.
then yeah, I went in, and it was Vince, Johnny Ace, and Ed McDevitt,
Hmm.
Gary McDevitt, their attorney. And he just said, "Look, you're not supposed to be getting supplements from these online pharmacies." And I didn't order from an online pharmacy. I actually saw a doctor. He prescribed it. The doctor ordered it from an online pharmacy, and I was like, I didn't order it from an online pharmacy. And he just said like, my hands are tied. I'm sorry, I have to do this. Like, and he suspended me for 30 days and fined me $10,000. And then, that put a screeching
Hmm.
halt to the Sun angle. So
A screeching halt to things, and then you came back.
and I came back, and I can't remember really. I honestly don't remember what happened after that. Everything's kind of, that whole 4.5 years that I was there, 4 years,
Hmm.
whatever, was just a blur. Sometimes somebody will post something
Hmm.
on day and whatever year, and I have no recollection of it because, like I said, it's just a constant whirlwind. And I've always had a pretty bad short-term memory, anyways. Like, remember as a kid, I couldn't have watches or sunglasses because I would always leave them somewhere. And my parents. And then the next year, I'd ask and beg them for Christmas. I'll remember this time. I won't lose them, and then I would lose them within 2 or 3 days. Um, but yeah,
So you've been a household name for, well, many, many, many years. Had a very successful career. What are you up to today?
so today I run a wrestling school in Minneapolis. Just I've been taking. I took a couple years off
Hmm.
from wrestling. I think I wrestled in a 3-year period. I maybe wrestled 3 times. Um, but I've been ramping those up again. But I'm just training my students. Davari and I opened up the Academy School of Professional Wrestling in Minneapolis in 2016, and since then it's just me and my. Now it's Davari's not there anymore. It's just me and my wife. Um, Davari's actually at WWE again as a producer, um, but I guess I never realized like how much fun and rewarding this part of my career could be.
Hmm.
But I really, really enjoy. I love training. I love just coaching people, seeing when they have those light bulb moments,
Hmm.
and then also, when they get opportunities. A couple of my guys just had WWE tryouts a few months ago, and where they get extra work. And just, it's cool to see that happen. I remember that feeling.
It's very rewarding.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you'd like to plug, promote?
No, I just if anybody's in the Twin Cities area,
Hmm.
uh, we have. You can either check out our website anyways, regardless. It's theacademysopw.com, or you can text me directly 507-722-2776, and we can talk about training. We run right now. We do a 1 year. Our program is 1 year, so you pay for 1 year of training, and then after the year of training is up, um, if you want to stick around, we charge $100 a month for. So we still have people that were with us on day one that still come, and they attend all the classes, and then that's the other thing too, is I allow everybody to attend all the classes. So beginners can come to advanced night and watch, and I think they can learn something from just observation. So
Absolutely. So,
yeah, but that's it.
I just want to thank you for coming on tonight. I know we've been trying to do this for a while. I'm happy that we finally got to sit down. I grew up an hour north of Louisville, so I got to see you in OVW. So I've got to see you from the beginning until now. And I just want to say thank you for all that you've done for professional wrestling and continue to do.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's do this again sometime.
All right, anytime, man.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's Morty.
It's Brian.
And thank you for watching today's episode of Developmentally Speaking.
If you could, please click that subscribe button.
And don't forget to punch that bell icon so you can get notified whenever we go live or drop a new video every Monday. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And we'll see you on the next
Developmentally Speaking.